Hello everybody and welcome to today's session. My name is Ben and I'm going to talk to you today about how to get future ready in project planning and scheduling using Asta Powerproject from Microsoft. In terms of housekeeping, everyone's microphone is muted. Hopefully you can hear me at this stage, but I can't hear any interference at your end. If you want to communicate with me, please do type a question in to go to the webinar control panel. That pops up on that screen over there and I'll do my best to look at those as we go through the session, and I'll certainly circle back around at the end of the presentation for any who haven't yet picked up. Everything I say and do today is being recorded. Let me just check. Yes, that is running. So you will get a link to watch back this recording into your inboxes in the next couple of days, and please feel free to share that inbox link with anybody else who you think might benefit from the content that we're covering. So I'm going to start today by outlining some frustrations that we found users experience before they mature into the situation of using a product such as Asta Powerproject. So looking through the audience list today, there are some existing customers, so a lot of this might be revision for some facts you already know about us. But for those who aren't familiar with Microsoft, with Asta and with Asta Powerproject, we're going to talk today about the frustrations that businesses often have when they're using more immature planning software products, be that Excel spreadsheets or things like Microsoft Project or other generic tools, and why there is a need and a benefit and value to moving into technology which is specific to your problem space. And obviously we sit here today as a market leader of construction project planning software that is specific for the construction industry. And given the nuances of the way in which we plan and deliver projects, having software which is well tailored to that environment is going to be very important and is going to be much more beneficial than grabbing one of those generic products. We often find that people are manipulating a project plan to match the functionality of software, and that's a really bad practice, really. You don't want to have to model something in a project plan just because that's the only way the software can handle it, as opposed to having software which is flexible enough and mature enough and full of the right features to actually reflect the real experiences of a construction project planner. You often have a lot of time-consuming work and unnecessary processes when you're having to use less mature software. If I take the example of an Excel spreadsheet, trying to manipulate a change, trying to record a change in a project plan, when you've drawn it out, probably by coloring bars, possibly by using formula of your own devices in Excel, that is full of the opportunity for error. What you really want is to have that change being easily replicated all the way through the cascading activities, and to be able to compare that change so that you can see what things used to look like and what they now look like going forwards. And that is very time consuming if you're doing that using technology that's not necessarily designed for that purposes. So all of those are frustrations that are experienced across those platforms. And who do you call when you've got a problem? It's not always just about the software product when it comes to choosing an approach here, but what support are you going to get from the software vendor or from the reseller, whoever it is you're accessing your software through? You need to be able to call somebody who can help you. You need to have training and support, which is all tailored to the environment you're in. And at the end of the day, your project plan often helps to make you look like a hero or make you look like you don't know what you're doing. Clearly, we want to be helping you as a user to look like the superhero of the business. And our job as a software vendor is to help and make sure that happens for you as a person. And that's why we're here. But let's talk about the actual planning data that sits in these systems as well. A lot of talk at the moment clearly about AI. I'm going to touch briefly on that in a moment. But we need to have the right building blocks for AI. And if you walk into a construction planning office at the moment and ask to see the data, you often get this sort of like color drain from the face and panic, and you might get a nice flashy dashboard. More often than not, you do sometimes get some sort of dashboard, but what's the actual data that's underneath that dashboard, and how are we cataloging and saving that information? If we're going to train our future AI driven models, we have got to give them robust, rich and reliable information. And that's one of the biggest barriers really to moving into this area, both for us as a vendor and also for our customers, is having the right information to train things on in the first place. So we're activists in this area. One of our customers we worked with, we did some analysis on the data sets they provided to us, and 80% of it was garbage. It was misleading. It was worse than that. It could have given very wrong impressions if that's how we're going to train our AI. There were lots of what-if scenarios that were never realistic, or tender packages that were never submitted and weren't relevant. Lots of data that they had as here's my planning data sets that actually would have been given very false results were that to have been the foundations of their future analysis of project planning. So we've got to get these building blocks in the right place if we're going to have success in the future, if we're going to unlock the access to future efficiencies and benefits that's available in some of the products that are coming to market now. So let's think about that. If your data's not right, clearly you waste an awful lot of time. And when it comes to reworks and snagging and the likes of that, all of the delays that are incumbent on projects, a lot of that often relies on poor data. Might not just be planning data, might be the design information and the likes. And all of this pushes into the budget, creates those overruns, and is a massive risk to our programs. Now, this last bullet point is an interesting one that I learned recently. For every pound we spend up front making the data right in the first place, if we don't spend that pound and we then have to correct the data down the line, it costs us £10. Because if you do it up front, it's cheaper. And if you then have to go back and retrospectively correct data, then it's going to be a 10 times increase. But then if you don't even make that change, then down the line, you could be into a 100% increase, £100 equivalent cost of relying on that incorrect data in the first place. So what starts up front as, oh gosh, it's going to cost me £1 to do, means you're then saving 10 times or 100 times impact further down the line. And that's something that's been modeled and shown to be proven across many different scenarios. Now, the good news is that there are people there who can help you with that. And obviously, Alikasoft, the company that I work for, is an example of that. And we're best known for our Asta suite of project controls, project planning solutions. At the heart of what we do is our Gantt chart-driven planning application called Asta Powerproject. Many of you may have heard of it, maybe many may have used it, and almost everybody at some point would have relied on data that came out of Asta Powerproject. But it's the building block to a number of different things that we do as a software business now. And we have some presentations next week, actually, around the next stage of evolution around our 4D and 3D management. I'm going to touch today on the common data environment as well that can support project planning because of the fact it can be that building block to success in the future. That links into collaboration and also for field service apps. So again, I can touch very briefly today on the mobile side of what we do. And we've got some innovations in that area to support Part L compliance coming down the line in a few weeks' time. And then there's some of this data side of it as well in terms of the governance, interoperability, that's integrations with other systems, and business insights or BI information, business intelligence information. And all of that feeds from this example of not just planning in isolation. If we are just creating a pretty picture, drawing a Gantt chart, printing it, sticking it on the wall, then we're not truly unlocking the benefits of successful project planning. So what do we do as an organization? Our aim is to obviously help throughout the building life cycle. We want to make sure you actually win the job in the first place by producing tenders that are easy to understand but accurate in what they display, and that's where 4D can be very useful as well. There then has to be a level of accuracy within that, so handling multiple calendars, multiple what-if scenarios is a big one, 2-week look-ahead programs, stuff like that. There are features within our software which are specific to supporting our users. And going back to that analogy, it's not just a printed document that sits on the wall, it's a living and breathing beast, really, as programs progress. No plan survives the first contact with the enemy. No plan survives the first trowel in the ground, shovel in the ground. So it needs to be malleable. It needs to be able to monitor and report change, the impact of change, what we're going to do about the fact there has been a change. All of those things are really important. It's not just about the pretty picture, but about managing, making decisions, and have to mention it, tracking what happened and why, in case we've got to fall back on that data. If we end up in a claims environment, if we're going to have a bun fight about something, you want to make sure you've got the robust information to rely on. And people win on a regular basis because of the stuff that's been catalogued in our products. So that's the software platform. I guess there's some more soft points here about the organization as well. So we like to make sure it's easy to use and intuitive. That's obviously subjective. It's down to the user's perception. But there are some very complicated tools out there in the market. We want to empower your confidence and increase your usage of the software. So that falls down to us to support you from a customer success point of view, to make sure you're getting the most out of what you're doing. We want to have consistent methods of working. We can talk about consistency later on. And just a couple of points there about the business as well. So yes, we are a UK headquartered software business with a team of support analysts ready to pick up the phone and answer questions about what we're doing and how best to do things, as well as providing the consultancy and training services to go along with it. So let's have one last few points here about data, and then we'll go and look at some software. We've got to help businesses move forward. Digital transformation is a real thing. It's not just this aspiration. And it comes from the point of increasing efficiency and supporting organizations. So it's really important that software that you're embedding now is fit for purpose in the longer term and can support the growth of a business. Now, that can be through pushing standardization, making sure that there's a common look and feel, but also that the data that's being created has consistencies within it, because that's what's going to train our AI model in the future. So making data actionable and creating certainty is all about having that right building block in the first place. And collaboration is key as well. It can't just be one person who's responsible for everything, because that's just not sustainable or indeed scalable. So let's go look at some software itself. And I'll probably just start with Asta Powerproject. So Asta Powerproject is our desktop application that is installed on a local device. And that means you get the power of the local device. And when we talk about 4D later on, and we get to show the use of graphical models, having your local graphics card to run that is very powerful. However, gone were the days where you have to just save it to your computer. Clearly, you can do so. But we now have the online repository called Vision. Vision is our project planning database in the cloud. As long as I can remember my password, and I can have multi-factor authentication and federated identity on that login, for those who care. But I can now have all my project plans hosted online. And if I wanted to look at one of these projects, I could check that down to myself and save it onto my local device to then make the changes. So in this scenario, this is an existing project that already exists. It's actually got a 4D model, so I'm going to cancel that because otherwise it'll take a little longer. And I have pulled this project down from the cloud and opened it on my local device. And I can now work on this in the way I'll show in more detail in a moment. And you've got some options to check it back into the system, or indeed just to cancel the checkout, so that I can work in this online, offline environment. A lot of cloud-first software runs out of steam when it hits the bandwidth and latency issues that a lot of us have at construction sites. So we've designed systems that support that you can be sat at home, as I am now, or sat in the hotel eating breakfast, using their Wi-Fi to download the latest version of your project plan, like I've got here, then jump in the car, drive 5 minutes down the road to the site where there's no connectivity, still get that laptop out and continue to analyze, to view, to edit, to amend the project plan. And then when you get back to that internet connection in the evening and you're enjoying a pint of Stella in the bar, you can then check the changes you've made that day back into the server server online. So you've always got that support knowing it's saved somewhere else. I'm actually going to quit this and go back to the beginning. So I'm going to close that project plan and not save it, because what I really want to do is just give a very simple demonstration of the basics of Asta Powerproject. So to do that, I'm going to start a brand new project. I am going to save this one locally, but I could choose, as that button says up there, to save it into Vision. But let's just create a completely blank schedule. And I'll give you a little bit of tour around Asta Powerproject. I used a template when I created this project. Perhaps my planning director or construction director created a standardized template for all my users. And that's got my company standard color schemes and code naming conventions. We might have certain shift patterns and calendars. All of that's been pulled from that template and natively pushed into Asta Powerproject. I've got a spreadsheet section into which I can add hundreds of different data columns meaning different things. But there is a search button to find the one you want. And then the bit we're used to with a Gantt chart, where I actually draw out my activities to represent what is going on. And I won't waste your time whilst I type up lots of stuff. I'm just going to call this a number of different tasks, and I will have a milestone in there. Now, milestone needs to have 0 duration, and we get the diamond shape at the end. Straight away, you can see that there's a calendar here that shows my site is closed 2 weeks over Christmas. If I just move task 3, and you can show how it nets and spans that Christmas period. Now, it could be that unfortunately, whoever's working on that doesn't get 2 weeks off over Christmas. And I can say just that one activity is now going to work during the Christmas period, but other tasks might continue to be offline effectively during that period. Let me take that back off again. We have unlimited number of undos, even past the save. But these activities currently floating around in midair, so I do need to link them up, and that's by drawing these arrows between activities. And you can do this individually, or you can multi-select as well, but I haven't got much on the screen, so I'm just going to select and draw these arrows out here. Now, once I've got everything configured and I press the reschedule button, everything jumps to its most logical place. And we calculate a critical path outlined in red. Task number 3, not quite critical. We've got a little bit of float on the back of it. I can grab those activities, summarize them, and call them phase 1. And hopefully, if you are familiar with some other software packages out there, let's say Microsoft Project, for example, you'll start to see just sort of like how natural it is to interact with what we're doing, how easy it is to make changes, how easy it is to set things up and then press the magic button rather than having stuff jump around on the screen the whole time, and have a visual approach to planning as opposed to using a spreadsheet data entry approach. Use of calendars, all these sorts of things add up to make Asta Powerproject a lot easier to use in the likes of Microsoft Project. But let's also make sure that we make our project look nice and neat, and we can do that by adding colors to it. And again, I can just drag and drop these over here, and these tasks can change their appearance, but they become data that I can then search on at a later date, and we'll do that in a moment. One thing that I could also show is how Asta supports multiple tasks per line. And this is really beneficial in a house building or a fit out or any scenario where you're doing lots of repeatable works. So I can link all these subsections of an activity up there. And I can have all of these individual pieces of a project plan on one line. I can drill down and show them on 2 lines. So if this is going to be foundations and damp proof course and brickwork 1, etc. for building houses, you get to have a very neat approach to whatever we're up to by having it all on one line as opposed to multiple lines, and then that can be copied and pasted down the screen to represent all the different plots you're working on. Before you do that paste though, you should probably put the colors on it so that you have those codes shown. But let's say we do have a project with lots of code shown on it, and I want to create a subcontractor program, or I want to issue to a resource just the activities they're working on. Very quick and easy to filter this project. So let's go and find all the tasks with brickwork assigned to them. I just double click that and I find just those 3 activities. If I wanted to be, that might be what I print. That might be what I issue to my subbing. I pressed the wrong button. Here's the print. And we can take that code library back off and spend a bit of time thinking about printing. When I go into file print, it still amazes me. This is something that lots of people have as frustrations in other products. Printing is still so important to our industry, believe it or not. Asta's going to work really hard to make sure your printout looks as professional as possible. It's going to push things onto one page if you ask it to. It's going to make sure the colors and appearance comes through. It's going to give you these very easy to edit border files. That might be a nice looking one. You'll probably want to replace our logo, and it's very quick to do that. If you're thinking, well, heaven forbid, I don't want the client to know when my holidays are. I can tell off my holidays. I don't want the client to know the critical path or that I've got any float. It's a bit busy, so let me just turn off some of the grid lines. You can see up here with all of these sort of options I've got, it's very easy to clean up your export to relate it to how you want it to appear when you hit that print button. Now, this project does need to be baselined, and a baseline is really important to track change. This becomes a carbon copy of everything on the screen. I have these yellow bars underneath my live project dates, and as I amend those, make some changes somewhere, doesn't really matter what for the sake of this, hit the reschedule button, and you'll see straight away the yellow is when we said we were going to deliver this project. And then the colored bars is now showing the live dates. I could have columns up here with planned and actual start. So if you want to look at them from a numerical point of view, what's the finished variance, for example, you can have these columns turned on that give you the numbers of how late you're running. But let's just take it back to standard and pop on, for example, a drop line. So if we pretend this project has now gotten to the end of December, I can drop line this project. A lot of you will be familiar with this concept. We drop that line down. It's that thin blue line amongst the blue hashed area. Maybe I should have chosen January so it stood out a bit better. But in my columns relating to planned % complete, that column has automatically filled itself based on what tasks should have been completed and are effectively behind that blue line. We then add in an actual % complete line. I'm actually going to use this one. And I can say that I've done 100% of that activity. Well done, but I only did 75% of that one, 50% of that one, and 25% of that one. And you'll see that the blue of the progress period is also being shown as shading on the bars. I get to a point now where I need to reschedule this project and create my new scheme for January, leaving behind in blue the activity that I have done and showing in yellow what I should have done originally, but then having my new project plan of what we need to do still being shown on the screen. Now I might have notes columns turned on, and I might use my mobile tool to actually walk around the building site and take photos to say why something happened at a certain point, and having evidence of that. And then when we start talking about part L, making sure that we are taking the right categorized photos with geotagging on them, and then the ability to spit that out as a report, a part L compliance report. That can all be driven from the schedule as well as reported out as needed. So I'm going to move forward into a project plan that someone else has prepared earlier for me. Just because it's got a lot more data in it, you can see it's a bit more interesting in terms of colors and multiple terms per line, different critical paths showing through here, some milestone gateways, that sort of thing. This project is also fully cost and resource loaded. So when I turn on the appropriate columns and bars, you'll find that I have got different trades assigned to do the different activities. Now, in our software, we can say how many people are you assigning to a project. So let's have an allocation column turned on. And let's also have effort, which in effect is man hours. It is the physical duration we need to deliver for some of this work. Now, we as a software product can always calculate the factor you're not in charge of. So typically, or sorry, the factor you are in charge of. Typically, you know how much work needs to be delivered. You know how long that brick wall is. You also know how quick a bricklayer lays bricks. So you need to decide how many bricklayers you're bringing on site that day, and we'll tell you how long it's going to take you. So if it's 40 man hours of work and it's one person, we know it's going to take you a full week. If there's two people on that job, it's going to take you half a week. Alternatively, you might say, I have to finish by a certain point in time. How many people do I need to shove onto the site? We will calculate that instead. So you can say, right, finish by Friday, and we'll say, well, therefore you need 3.5 people to make that happen. All of that is shown in things like these graphs here. So here are some resource graphs. Turn that bottom one off. And the key being they are linked to the schedule. So something changes in the schedule, obviously my resource allocations and loading changes. We also know how much we pay our different resources. So we can go into some cost graphs, and based on costs, which can be planned versus actual as well, we can bring out cash flow. So top graph is our monthly slice of costings. The middle graph is our cash flow, because we have income events associated with this project as well, milestones saying when we get paid. And the bottom one is the total cost that we're going to incur over this project. Again, all of these being linked to the program. So as the program changes, straight away this stuff changes. Now, I've seen some really complicated Excel spreadsheets that try and do the same thing. And the users of those are very proud of those spreadsheets, quite rightly so. But the biggest problem is always going to be how you then manage change. Because whilst it's easy to set those up once, how you then manage those change based on the change to the schedule, the impact that has on the costs, potentially on the resources, that becomes very difficult. And we're going to do that out of the box by always having those baselines available and showing the change in relation to this baseline here. Okay, so that's quite a bit of software to look at initially, and I want to just flip back into my slides for the last 10 minutes just to close off this subject. I want to get onto the point of decision making. So whilst I've shown you on screen some very basic stuff really about project planning, if you extrapolate what we've done there into programs that have many hundreds, many thousands of activities, what we're going to try and do with Asta Powerproject is show you where things are going wrong, show you where the challenges are, give you an ability to focus on the problem and help make informed decisions. So we want to give you those confidence in the decisions. So on screen there is the classic dashboard that now most people rely on when they're looking at project data. And these can be driven from that Asta Vision system we mentioned as being the cloud database behind Asta Powerproject. And as they are starting to monitor change and catalog what's going on, you start to build up this benchmarking information. You can say that subcontractor's always 20% late, or that cost we always underestimate it by a certain percentage. And you have this really rich information to enhance your profitability and to make better decisions as you go forwards. So as I mentioned, the heart of that might be having a database-driven approach to project planning. And there's some simple steps here, which means that the Asta Powerproject user, so if you're an existing customer of us, you live down here in Asta Powerproject, but we now have this database in the middle here, which is this Asta Vision data source. So the project planner is still doing what they're doing, as I demoed earlier on, offline, online when they need to be. but all the rich data sits in that core database in the Asta Vision. So shown in yellow there, we've got Power BI as a dashboarding tool connected into Asta Vision. And coming soon, as in literally within a few weeks, we have these APIs that can call to and from Asta Vision. So we're not naive enough to think that you're going to buy every single piece of software from Microsoft, nice as that might be for me personally. You are going to want to choose best in breed solutions, and we would even recommend certain other applications as being best in breed for some certain topics. Well, how is that information then going to flow between different software vendors? And APIs are the answer to that. Open, standard-based, REST-based APIs that allow calls between different systems and move the information between different vendors. And that's where those APIs are going to be really powerful as we build for the future. Now, I did mention site progress. I'm not going to do a full demo of that today, but let's just have a look at a few pictures of it. So whilst you could just use your laptop to open Asta Powerproject and type progress data into Asta, alternatively, you could rely back on our good friend Microsoft Excel and send someone a list of tasks and plan start dates in Excel and ask them to enter that data back into Excel and send it back to you. You might be able to copy that information across, blah, 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 blah. Anytime when you're doing those sorts of manual approaches, you're opening up the opportunity for error. And we're here to try and remove that error. And the use of the mobile app is going to be one of the ways that we do that. So by having the mobile tool that talks directly to Asta Powerproject, we remove that possibility of data error. Okay, people still type stuff in on the phone, but we do also introduce a checklist of approval, basically, so that you can see what's been added and see whether you want to accept or deny those requests. And as it says just at the very bottom of this screen, and you can see it in the screenshot over there, the ability to add photos and comprehensive notes to each activity. So you can record not just that there is a delay, that the site's flooded, but you can also take a photo of that as evidence you might need to later on, or any time when there might be snags or other issues you've got that you want to make sure that you've got the evidence for. And having the mobile tool all interconnected into the same ecosystem is going to be really beneficial. And then we move on to the world of 4D. So for those for whom 4D is a new concept, what we're basically talking about here is taking the three-dimensional model of whatever it is we're going to build, or even the thing we're going to demolish, whatever it is that our project relates to, and bring that 3D model in at project planning stage. As you can see in that screenshot, you actually open up that model in Asta Powerproject. And I've actually got it open twice because one's going to track a baseline and one's going to track our live data. You link the activities in the Gantt chart to the elements in the model. You say that that bar on the bar chart represents those elements on the model. And that's going to be super beneficial when it comes to running those scenarios. What if we do it this way round? What happens? If we do it that way round, what's the impact? If I build these bits first, are they going to clash with something else that's also in that model? So it helps to spot errors and to drive efficiency even before you get on site. You can run these scenarios, you can check different methods of construction, and you can rehearse your construction. When you're in the build, you can then use this as an explanation tool, a visualization tool. Hey guys, come over here and see what we're doing today. Let's crowd around the laptop and have a little view of all of this stuff, how it's going to interact. What are we doing this week? Let's look at the stuff that was late last week. I can actually show you in 3D the bits which were late. They should look like this, but currently if you look out the port cabin window, it looks like that. Compare and contrast plan versus actual and make those decisions. What's the impact on that? What are we going to do about the temporary works because a certain thing that's happening on site? So 4D at its most simplistic level is going to be very, very powerful, but we then start to go further than this. So the model tells you quantity information. A designer has drawn the concrete slab. The model knows how big that concrete slab is. As soon as we start to bring that data in at a planning stage, it's going to make our plans more accurate. And you can see in the future through a concept we've developed called Active 4D, how that's going to make projects much more efficient and more accessible in the future. And I'm just going to close up now. So the last thing to say about working with us versus using some of the more generic tools, I mentioned it earlier on, we are the experts in our own software. So with a lot of software vendors, you then work with a third party to do the training, the implementation, all the rest of it. And if you want a change in the software, who do you speak to about that? We host annual user group meetings. We go and see customers as much as we can get out to and achieve. And the views and inputs from customers is what drives our future roadmap. There's two parts of our roadmap: the stuff that we think is cool and exciting and going to be innovative that we've designed, and the things that our customers have said, that's what's going to change our lives. This is what we want you to build into your software. So our software is always evolving along the directions of the customers need. And we're going to be sitting there supporting you, making sure you always get the most from your investment in our products. So there we go. I hope that was a useful, relatively quick whistle-stop tour through moving into future-powered construction planning software products. I'm opening for questions now, so if you're leaving the session now, thank you very much for your time. If you're sticking around, please do type a question into the GoToWebinar control panel, and that pops up on my screen, and I'll be able to answer those. So someone's just asked the obvious question about cost. How much does your software cost? I'm looking for my price list for this, which I left on the floor. So all our software is available as a subscription. So you buy it on an annual basis, and you choose to renew that if you so wish on an annual basis. And the entry-level software, standard Asta Powerproject, for one user on one computer is current list rate £1,165. We also quite uniquely have something called a concurrent shared model. It used to be much more prevalent in software circles, but not many people do it these days. And a concurrent license means you can buy an allocation of licenses for your business. You don't have to say who's using them. They can basically be floating around the company. So if you have 20 laptops in the company, you can install Asta on all of them. And if you bought just one concurrent license, any one of those 20 people could use it, but only one at a time. And if you bought two concurrent licenses, any two people at any one time would be able to use the software at the same time. That costs a little bit more. It's £2,010 for a concurrent license. And of course, we offer quantity discounts for people who are buying multiple licenses. I also showed some extra add-on software, some optional add-ons today. We spoke about Site Progress, the mobile tool. We spoke about 4D as the optional add-on, and we also spoke about Asta Vision, which is the cloud-based data collaboration platform. Each of those have an incremental cost on top as well. And best thing to do, frankly, is just give us a call, and we'll talk through the options you have on those. Someone's asked a question here about the mobile apps. So they run on Android and iOS. So you can download both of those from the relevant app stores. Someone's asked a question here about the support service. So yeah, you can simply email the support team or phone the support team at any point. UK office hours. There's no limit to the access to a support team. They'll always do their best to help and support you. And someone's asked a question about 4D. So there is a webinar about this next week that I recommend you attend. If you visit our website, you'll find a webinar next week around the next iterations of our 4D technology. But to answer that specific question about the models, we use an IFC file format as the three-dimensional model that we import into Asta. Okay, so no further questions coming through now. So I'm going to close the session. I'm going to thank everybody once again for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I hope we can help you in the future to move forwards.